Coming up, did the Schlitterbahn tragedy amount to murder? Thousands gather at Kansas City's March for Our Lives over the weekend. Our bi-state lawmakers respond with bills expanding guns in the classroom. Tuesday is local election day in our metro. We take a look at what's at stake. Plus McCaskill under attack, and it's finally open. What difference will Major League Baseball's Urban Youth Academy make to 18th and Vine?
Week in Review is made possible through the generous support of Dave and Jamie Cummings, Smithfield Foods, Haas and Wilkerson Insurance, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome everyone, I'm Nick Haynes and thanks for joining us again on the program that connects the dots on the most important news stories of the week in this place we call home. Pouring through the news of the week from KMBC 9 News, political reporter Michael Mahoney. From the Kansas City Star, Steve Vockrodt. From the Kansas City Call newspaper, Eric Wesson. And Star columnist and editorial writer Dave Helling. Now, there are some stories in the news you think you've heard the last of, and then it comes back in the most unexpected way. This week, the co-owner of the Schlitterbahn water park chain has been arrested and charged with second-degree murder. So has the designer of the water ride that decapitated a 10-year-old Olathe boy in 2016. The operations manager at the Kansas City, Kansas-based park has also been arrested and charged with involuntary manslaughter. But who is doing the arresting, first of all, and who's doing the charging in this case, Steve Vockrodt?
So the arresting is being done, well, Jeff Henry, who's the co-owner you mentioned, he was arrested by U.S. Marshals down in Texas where he lives and where most of Schlitterbahn's operations are. Tyler Miles, he turned himself in a week ago today. Jeff Schooley, who's the designer, he's somewhere overseas. It's not clear where and when and how he'll be brought into custody. But yes, they are all charged, as well as two corporate entities related to Schlitterbahn.
And who's doing the charging?
The Kansas Attorney General is leading the investigation. They convened a grand jury in Wyandotte County, reported that a couple weeks ago that was in existence. And so the grand jury recommended the indictment, and the Kansas Attorney General is bringing the case.
But this has been almost 2 years since that tragedy. Why now, Michael?
Because the investigation got to that point. I think a lot of people wondered why that water slide was still there after Schlitterbahn said they were going to tear it down when the investigation was complete. In that indictment, the Attorney General accuses Schlitterbahn of substantially delaying the project, the investigation, because they couldn't find all the paperwork. When they got this all together, they come out with these actually astonishing documents that are in this indictment. It's really eye-opening.
And it's astonishing and eye-opening also for a lot of members of the public, Dave Helling, who will look at this and say, wow, murder. We have automobile manufacturers and we have the tobacco industries whose executives are not held accountable in a criminal fashion for their products. Why would we look at murder for this particular tragedy?
I think that's right, Nick, but the best thing to do is to look at this case in isolation and determine whether or not these charges apply to these defendants. And the bar is going to be very high, particularly for the two defendants accused of murder, because you have to, in essence, not only establish that they were somehow negligent in the design or operation of this ride, but they were willfully negligent. They knew it was going to be dangerous. They knew there was the potential for death, and then somehow ignored it in a reckless or extreme manner. That's going to be difficult, not impossible, but difficult. But it also means that this case may go on for several months as the sides argue back and forth.
But we have the operations manager himself, Steve Vockrodt, who says, I've ridden it many, many times. My wife was going to ride it that day. That's not somebody who is so reckless about the safety of others.
Right, and the parks owners will say things like, we had thousands of people ride this thing without incident. We've had one death. Look at the totality of the circumstances. What the Kansas Attorney General is accusing them of, essentially, and it's worth restating what the accusations are, while keeping in mind that they're innocent until proven guilty, is that the indictment says that these guys hurried to get this thing built so they could make a TV show, cable television show. They said that these guys understood and knew that there were problems and that there were people telling them that there were safety problems and that they didn't care, that there are safety standards that are codified in the industry that they didn't adhere to, and that they lack the expertise to design something like what they designed. That's what they're That's what they're accused of.
Eric.
And there's been a number of injuries, is my understanding, with that ride. And there were some other issues that they were rushing, not only for the show, but also to have this record of having this ride together. And so in the manufacturing and putting it together, they were cutting corners here and cutting corners there. But it's my understanding they've settled a lot of injury things off the record and under the table that led to them being in the position that they're in now.
To reinforce Eric's point here, in that indictment, it says in the 182 days of operation of that water slide, because it wasn't always in operation. Sometimes Schlitterbahn was on weekend service only. 182 days of operation, they had 14 incidents. That works out to something like 1 every 13 days. So, and that's part of the indictment here, is that some of the injury reports were not available as well.
And some people would look at that and say that was recklessness. This is not necessarily second-degree murder. Is there a strategy, though, of going for the highest possible charges possible so you can then negotiate down from there, Steve?
Well, generally in criminal prosecutions, that can be a strategy. Go for what you think you can get, and then settle for what both sides will agree to. The company and the attorneys representing these defendants, they've given no signal that they're gonna back down from this. They've been pushing back hard on the accusations. And in the case of Tyler Miles, he's set for trial on September 10th. His attorney seems to indicate that the government needs to be ready to go.
But in May,
soon.
the park will reopen for a second season since that tragedy.
Right.
What about the park? The ride is still there and will continue to be there?
Probably. I have gotten no indication one way or the other about whether this ride comes down, but one presumes that given the ongoing investigation of it, it would probably remain.
What has been the impact of the park? I mean, are they losing visitors because of this?
Well, they're a privately held company, family-owned company, so they don't have to divulge their statistics or anything like that. They did say prior to the opening of the park last year that, out of a sense of sensitivity, given what happened to Caleb Schwab, that they weren't going to do a lot of heavy advertising opening as it leads.
But it is having an effect. I see the DeSoto School District was one of those this week. They have an upcoming band day at the park, and they're now telling them, as a result of this news, that they will not be participating at the Schlitterbahn Water Park.
Right, and there are doubts about whether the existing park can be made safe or whether there are incidents on other rides that are not being reported. Now, this week, the Kansas Department of Labor, which has oversight over amusement parks, said it would conduct a full compliance audit of Schlitterbahn before it opens in May. That's less than meets the eye. It's just taking a look at the paperwork, making sure that that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. It doesn't necessarily imply sort of the Department of Labor going in and looking at every rivet or that type of thing. The other thing to point out is that I think more attention will grow over the next couple of weeks on the unified government's silence on this issue. I mean, the district attorney has turned it over to the Kansas Attorney General, walked away from the case. The unified government continues to say it has nothing really to do with what's going on out there. I think some people are going to start saying you need to be paying a closer attention to what's happening in Schlitterbahn.
Their response to that, Dave, because I talked to a couple of folks in the government, was, excuse me, their inspections and their ability to inspect were pretty limited because of their codes and their expertise. They looked at whether or not the foundations were correct, that they had the proper papers, and that was it. They're basically saying that the inspection of this was
But there was some earlier reporting that you did, Steve, about what the role of the unified government was in putting the safety netting over the ride. That was one of the major problems in the resulting in that death.
Yeah, I mean, that's what killed the young boy who wrote it. And the day after it happened, I called the unified government, and a spokesman for the unified government said, we insisted for safety reasons to put that over the slide, and then as I pressed him throughout the rest of the week, well, whose decision was it? Who designed it? They retracted that statement. The origin of that system, that netting system, remains a mystery.
Yeah, and just quickly, my interest is the unified government's posture going forward, not necessarily what might have happened with Varut, But state law clearly gives local governments the ability to impose stricter standards on amusement parks than the state does. The unified government has so far declined to do so, and I do think pressure is going to grow on them to say, look, you need to be a little bit more involved in the safety of the existing park as we proceed.
Okay, we have other news to report this week. Tuesday is local election day in our metro. In Kansas City, Missouri, voters are being asked to decide the renewal of a sales tax for capital improvements. Under the proposal, around 1 in 3 of the dollars would go to neighborhood improvements, 25% would go to maintaining and repairing streets, and the rest would go to other projects, including the city's share to replace the aging Buck O'Neill Bridge. But I thought Kansas City voters, Eric Wesson, approved an $800 million infrastructure improvement program at the ballot box on this very day last year. Why do they need this money?
It's an extension of what's already there for PIAC, public improvement money for sidewalks, curbs, and streets and parks in various communities. So it's just an extension of that. I don't think that the two have anything to do with each other. I think the go-by money goes in one hand or one pot, and the other money goes into
the biggest
another.
reason for voting yes on this, Michael Mahoney?
Number one is it is a renewal. Number two, the PIAC system works pretty well in terms of getting projects done in neighborhoods, done on time, in budget. And I think that there's a decent case to be made for the fact that Kansas City is going to use some of the citywide money on this to pay for their share of the Buck O'Neill Bridge. Now, it's also very interesting that in a comprehensive transportation report that came out earlier this year, they cited the Buck O'Neill Bridge as one of the transportation problems that needs to be corrected with the deficient bridges and bridges that needed repairs. And the case can be made quite effectively that bridge belongs to the state of Missouri, and they ought to be picking up the entire $200 million tab.
Why would people may want to pick the no button on this?
A couple of reasons, Nick. First of all, it's a sales tax, which is regressive. Kansas City has a regressive tax system, which typically hurts the poor. It's a 20-year renewal, which is a long period of time. Some people have said, look, maybe 10 years would work. Maybe give us a chance in 10 years to come back and make sure this process is going well. And then the third reason you might want to vote no is what Mike just talked about, and that is the use of this money for things like the Buck O'Neill Bridge. The original idea of PIAC was sort of a neighborhood-based pot of money where we need new swing sets, we need new gutters, and there would be some money to do that, and you would apply every year, and there was a process, by the way, outside of the city council, largely outside of the council, to get that money spent. Instead, they're taking at least a big chunk of this money for a big project that, as Mike points out, the state should be involved in. That might be a reason to vote no.
Now, there are other big issues being decided in our metro on Tuesday. I notice half a dozen cities in the metro will be deciding whether to tax online sales. Independence, Blue Springs, Liberty, Belton, Odessa, all asking you whether you would be willing to support that tax. But why would people vote to pay more for their purchases, Steve?
Well, that's always the hard sell in any kind of tax increase election. In this case, there's a knowledge that the bricks and mortar retail industry is facing severe headwinds. We see, it seems like every month we see some national retailer filing for bankruptcy or in some level of dire straits because people have gravitated so much into online sales. For suburban cities in particular, they've relied over the years on a fairly substantial amount of sales tax revenue from these types of strip malls and developments, and they're seeing that migrate online. So people have been able to buy online free of sales tax for a long time. I think that free ride's coming to an end.
Okay. Eric.
And I agree with him. The brick and mortar days are over. People aren't going in the stores, they're buying online. But why would I pay more online for something that you don't offer me in the stores here?
Are people in the voting booth willing to put the community need ahead of their own checkbooks, in a sense?
Well, I don't know the answer to that, but I do know that the answer is coming because there is a Supreme Court case that's being heard or up on Capitol Hill right now in the Supreme Court dealing with this very issue of taxing internet sales. You can, in some states, do it. Some municipalities are doing it like this election. Watch this case at the Supreme Court very carefully and how they rule on internet sales tax.
Some news accounts say more than 5,000 of you gathered over the weekend for Kansas City's March for Our Lives at Feast Park across the road from the Nelson Atkins Museum.
Everybody here over over the age of 18, if you really want to make the changes you're here fighting and walking and talking about, you must absolutely vote.
Since my birth, there have been over 204 school shootings. That is more than one for every month I have been alive.
But was there anything different about the message in Kansas City than what was presented at hundreds of other similar events across the country, Dave?
No, I think it was, it was based, as the other marches were, on sort of this grassroots movement organized largely by students, although obviously adults are now playing some role in the execution of these events. Whether it has any impact on legislators, particularly in our neck of the woods, is not very clear at all. Missouri and Kansas both continue apace to loosen gun laws rather than to strengthen.
Let me talk about that, because what was the response from our local decision makers? We saw Kansas City Mayor Sly James embracing the marches. How about our state lawmakers? They responded by debating bills to approve guns in the classroom and beyond.
The idea is to let Kansas teachers, if they want to, carry a concealed weapon in class.
To guarantee or help improve the safety of the children who go to school down the street.
We were very disappointed to see a solution offered that would encourage arming teachers here in Kansas.
Guns could soon be allowed in your child's college, your churches, even daycares. It's the new Missouri bill lawmakers are now debating.
Just because lawmakers propose a bill does not mean in any way they will be implemented. What is the status of those bills, Michael?
That bill to arm teachers, I don't think is going anywhere after this hearing. If it were, probably the committee chairman would have moved it on this past Thursday or today. That isn't happening on Friday. It was a show hearing, I think. At the same time, the Kansas legislature did approve a bill creating a safety fund for schools, $5 million in that. There's a lot of consternation about whether or not $5 million does too much. At the same time, over in Missouri is proceeding with a bill very similar to one that is now in law in Kansas that permits concealed carry in many, many public buildings, including churches, college campuses, even bars.
And what is the status of that?
That is moving ahead. I want to go back to something that Dave said very briefly. I don't want to get too far ahead on this, but I wouldn't be surprised if 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years from now, we look back at some of these protests that are taking place now and draw some parallels to the Vietnam protests of the late 60s and the early 70s that were, in fact, driven by young people at the time, and that the adults at the time were trying to chase up with the head of the parade. I don't know if it's going to happen, but it feels like there's a vibe out there.
But you've said, though, in some of your columns, Dave Howling, that it's one thing just to come together like that, but what's the sustainability of that, and will people actually do things beyond just marching in a park?
Right, and the point I'm trying to make, Nick, is particularly in our polarized environment, and I think the things Mike just talked about are proof of this, marches don't change legislative minds very often. People vote the way they have suggested they will on guns and a lot of other issues, but particularly on guns. And so the idea that somehow public pressure or marches at the state capitol or protests will move actual votes is less relevant than changing the people you send to Topeka and Jeff City and Washington, D.C. And so the only, you could argue not the only, but the major impact will be if you change the way people go to the polls.
Kansas City Mayor Sly James will be leaving office next year. This week he delivers what will be one of his last State of the City addresses.
2018 must be the year that we get Kansas City off the 10 most dangerous cities list. In 2017, 149 people were murdered in our city. Now, that number makes me pretty mad.
Eric Wesson, what did we learn from the mayor's speech about what he still wants to achieve with just 1 year left to get it done?
Well, we learned quite a bit. He spoke before the speech the day before that about racial equality and paying attention to the east side a little bit more. Sounded good, but what's the steps that we take into doing that? Homicides and crime, the police department is going to get more money for public safety, those kind of things. But can I just jump back? The civil rights movement, those protests created equal rights. So protest and people marching is effective if you do it right.
Thank you, Eric. Did you learn anything from his speech that you didn't know before about his priorities for the remainder of his time in office, Steve?
Well, I mean, things are clearly being reshuffled. I mean, things like the airport are taken care of. That's moving further down the list. And so it does appear that he will make this crime issue and racial issues in this town a big priority. Those are, you know, for as much as the airport was an extraordinary lift, things of that nature are much loftier.
Michael.
And those sorts of things that Steve's talking about are really changing the course of an ocean liner. It is going to be incremental. But I got to give Mayor James some credit. His Turn the Page initiative to promote reading and improve reading in Kansas City is one of the long-term systemic improvements that a city makes that I think, in a generation can address some of these problems like the murder rate.
Last week on the program, we discussed the defacing of the John Brown statue near the Quindaro Historic Site in KCK. I asked at that time, did anybody know there was a statue there before the story broke? Well, loyal KCPT viewer Michael Bird wrote to us this week telling us that is the first place he takes his out-of-town visitors when they come out to Kansas City. And he sends this photo of happier days with visitors at the John Brown statue. Meanwhile, speaking of history, Kansas Governor Jeff Collier ordering flags at half-staff this week in honor of Linda Brown at the age of 9. The Topeka girl became the focal point of the landmark Brown versus Board of Education case that struck down segregation in America's schools. She died this week at the age of 76, but more than 60 years after that legal decision, I see reports that schools are resegregating, Eric.
Yeah, they are, and it's tragic, but public schools are taking a lot of hits, and you know, it's like kind of going back in time because the charter schools have come, and in other states they're going back to pretty much desegregating school because of the funding, the spending that takes place in the schools, especially over in Kansas City, Kansas. I would think that would be the premier city that they would be using to help education for minorities.
The national political news site Politico reporting this week that Missouri Senator Claire McCaskill is hosting a Beverly Hills fundraiser featuring former President Barack Obama. According to the report, it would be Obama's first appearance on behalf of an individual candidate since he left office last year. Politico lists filmmaker Steven Spielberg and movie executive Jeffrey Katzenberg as the Hollywood heavyweights behind the event. The announcement comes as McCaskill has been trying to distance herself from leading Democrats, including former presidential candidate Hillary Clinton, who she claims may be hurting her campaign for re-election. McCaskill's Republican opponent, Josh Hawley, the Missouri Attorney General, has seized on the issue in a series of new campaign ads.
I understand the point she was trying to make, but it felt like she was criticizing Missouri voters.
You didn't like black people getting rights. You don't like women, you know, getting jobs. Whatever the reason was, he stirred that up.
I think it certainly is being taken out of context.
This week, you see on this one, it's interesting that, Michael Mahoney, that Claire McCaskill has tried to win over Trump supporters in the state of Missouri. Why would she agree, first of all, to a fundraiser with Barack Obama in Beverly Hills? Are the optics wrong on that when she's trying to win over those Trump supporters in Missouri?
It's like the old bank robber Willie Sutton. What does he do? He goes where the money is, and that's what she's doing there. And I asked McCaskill about this, and she said, you know, most of her contributions, 90% of them, are under $100. They're small donors, and she said when Josh Hawley averages less than $1,500 on a contribution, then he can talk to her about this. The bigger story on that was the other one that McClatchy and the Star broke on Wednesday about Claire's clumsy outreach to black leaders in Missouri to try to shore up her campaign. It's a great piece of reporting.
I did see that, but Eric, wouldn't those same African-American leaders who are complaining in that, though, be ones supporting her? They're not going to be supporting Josh Hawley on Election Day, right?
Right. They're not. They're going to vote Democrat or not vote at all.
There you go.
And that's the problem that she's going to have in the black community, is firing that base up. And the people that she tried to get to sign that letter, those are leaders in the community that can help fire her base up.
Months ago, she was viewed as vulnerable, but we've had a number of congressional special elections since then where Democrats have done favorably. Does she have a better chance today than she did at the end of last year?
Well, I think she has the same chance, which is relatively good. Remember, in the last Senate race, when Donald Trump was carrying Missouri by 19 points, Roy Blunt was only beating Jason Kander by 3. So I still think at the Senate level it's a 50-50 race. McCaskill has an extraordinarily difficult political challenge, Nick, because she has to make sure there's energy in the African-American community and urban areas generally, while not alienating those in rural areas, and she's trying to thread that needle, and that's what this is all about.
This week marked opening day for the Kansas City Royals. It also marked the grand opening day for the new Major League Baseball Urban Youth Academy. The $20 million facility at 18th and Vine has been under construction for nearly 2 years. Now kids in the area get to experience first-class indoor and outdoor baseball fields, equipment and coaching help free of charge. When there are continuing concerns about the ongoing viability of 18th and Vine, what impact does this facility have on the area, Eric?
The jury's still out. We'll ask that question next year, but I think it'll be a situation where people come in from Johnson County, get it back in their cars, and get on.
I didn't think Johnson County people would be allowed to go in there. They wanted to concentrate on urban youth.
I think this academy is a great step in that way. Take the baseball out of it for a second, although that offends me greatly as a baseball fan. This is going to be a center where young people can learn some life skills, and baseball is full of them, but look at it beyond sports and a mentoring center. This could be a very, very good thing for Kansas City. These academies in other cities have succeeded.
And that is our Week in Review. Our thanks to our news reviewers from the Kansas City Star, Steve Vokrot and Dave Helling, from The Call, Eric Wesson, and from KMBC 9 News, Michael Mahoney. I'm Nick Haynes. From all of us here at KCPT, thanks for spending part of your weekend with us.